Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Music Man podcast. I'm Joe.
I'm Ken.
And we're here for an exciting new episode. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing all right. I was just telling you prior to us getting ready here, I had a glass of nice, cold, crisp water sitting next to me, and my obnoxious flailing arms just sent it flying to the floor. So now I am sans water.
For those who don't know, music equipment and water do not mix.
Oh man, the rage-ahol that just boiled up inside me, man.
Yeah,
so
I don't ever keep water up on my desk, and it's specifically because I'm an idiot, and I'm like, I don't care if it's in a water bottle. I know I'll not tighten it enough, and it'll just spill somewhere, and then I'm gonna be like beyond mad at myself.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you. So the floor is all wet. And we got cords and plugs and stuff all over the place. So let's see if we make it to the end.
A perfect mixture of chaos. That's how I like to view it. And it's the day before Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
And I have many things to thank, including you, my beautiful friend. I love you to death. And I'm grateful you do these podcasts with me.
I am grateful to do the podcast with you as well. Love you too, brother.
All right. Well, this episode, should we just start jumping in?
Yeah, let's go. Let's do this.
So a topic that Ken and I have been kind of passionate about lately, we're going to call this one the end of the ownership era with a question mark, because we personally feel like, well, I don't want to speak for Ken as much, but I do think we talked a lot about it, that we personally think that ownership should come back to the artists. In terms of their music, in terms of calling the shots with stuff. And we're going to kind of jump right into it. There's a couple things I kind of want to touch on, and I know Ken has a couple things he wants to touch on. And then we're going to kind of go over a little bit of like not a blueprint, but just kind of a idea chart of how we take back that ownership. And it's not exactly like, hey, you're going to make millions of dollars to get millions of fans from this. It's more, how do I do this at a level that I'm at and build it up to something where I own what I own of music and stuff. One of the big things that, first off, is Spotify just got $1.5 billion in profit that they just made. So that's off of the back of artists. Meanwhile, they're paying shit to artists like us.
Sure.
And they're preventing people who are less than 1,000 plays to even get paid out for that music, which has really aggravated me a lot, because you and I have talked about this with my next coming out album that I want to do. I don't think I'm going to release it to at least certain streaming platforms, but including Spotify. Yeah. And it's not a matter of like, I have all these fans that are coming. It's not about that. We have to take a stand at some point where it's like, I'm fucking done. I'm done playing this game. I don't care if you don't make a shit ton of money off my music, but you're making money off of all these other artists, and it's just not fair that you're not paying an even amount. And you're making $1.5 billion. You know?
Yeah, it's funny that number $1.5 billion is, and I say this in no way, shape, or form to downplay the atrocity that their business is operating in or with. Anyways, that $1.5 billion is valuation.
Right.
And unfortunately, that $1.5 billion valuation in the economic scheme of things allows them to do lots of expensive things. And they may not have 1.8 billion physical dollars in their bank. It's like credit. And
Exactly.
They get to use that to do whatever they want to do with that kind of valuation. And I think what they're doing most recently, especially with the legislation that is being, I don't know if it's still being pushed into Congress, but there are Congress people that are trying to pass legislation that is going to force streaming services to pay a livable wage or a reasonable wage for using our content on their platform. So with this legislation coming, or at least it's the first vestige of trying to stop them from exploiting us all. I think this most recent change that they did with, well, we're going to basically demonetize 80% of all of the content that is on this platform. I think they figured out the threshold to where if you don't get this many plays, and they know that you will never get that many plays in that time frame, they're just funneling more money to themselves as a cash grab, so to speak.
Yeah.
So are they going to continue to... what's your point, Ken? Are they going to continue to exploit this cash grab? Well, as long as we're all putting our music on there and people are being steered to the platform. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. The way that a streaming platform like that gets money is from advertisement. The more people you steer to the platform and put in front of advertisements, the more money the advertisers pay said Spotify.
Monetization.
Well, yeah, that's the basic principle of so many streaming services, even like video streaming services. So to your point, like we need enough people to say, you know what? Either we're done with being exploited and we're going to accept the consequences and not have that as a major platform, or somebody's got to come along and make something better.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what we talked about in our previous podcast too, is like a major group of artists, of the major artists who've already made a ton of money. And I'm not saying they haven't earned that money, but it's like, I would like to think you and I, if we ever made it to that point where we're making so much money that it's like, there's a point where it's like, let's fix the community for everybody. Like it's not, it's like, when does it become enough, you know? And really quickly to piggyback off just like an Econ 101, take away the stock market and see how much these companies would stay afloat, like Tesla or Spotify or YouTube. Like, none of these people are making actual profit like a mom and pop shop.
Right.
It's like they're not
fake. It's all fake money.
It's all fake money. So, and I'm not like trying to be nihilistic or like a dooms person, but like really think about that. Like, they're not making money, then how are they in business? And then they're taking from the artists the profits so that they do make money. Yeah. And that's the aggravating part, is like, without the artists, you don't have anything. Well, fuck it then. I'm not going to be one of those artists that are on there. And if I don't make it big, then I don't make it big. But you know what? Sure. Principle of the matter is, I don't want to be fucked over anymore by assholes like that. And maybe if enough people do decide to start saying, I'm not going to do it anymore. You know.
So are you going to just omit Spotify and you're gonna distribute on all the other ones?
Not sure yet. I don't know if I'm going to do any digital distribution. And we'll kind of go over that with some of the blueprint stuff that I had that I kind of, I've been focusing on myself. And again, my blueprint may not work for everybody. It's just my blueprint, and it's how I'm viewing things, and it's hard work, and it's that same shit we've always heard, like, you know, you have to buckle up your bootstraps crap. And it's like, yeah, but maybe that's the way we have to take it to change this industry and not survive in this hellscape of a place with Ticketmaster and Spotify being the superior beings. So the other thing I wanted to touch on too is, and I have a thing written out, but I'm going to read that after I read this quote.
Okay.
Ken and I sent him this video. I can't remember her name. She's got a fantastic music channel, and I forgot her name that I sent the video. She's very
we'll
excellent.
We'll put it in the comments.
Comments
we'll,
in the show notes, because she's fantastic, and she deserves the credit in terms of calling this out, in terms of bringing it out to my eyes. But she displayed an interview with Joe Kentish, who's Warner A&R. And this was from 2020, I believe. And this is verbatim his quote. And I really want this to resonate with people when you hear this, because this should, as an artist, piss you off. So this guy said, there needs to be an element of commercial. I've got to think right. I kind of know what we can do a job with them. And that sounds cynical, but it's really important that I look at you and I think that, and all the resources that my company has at its disposal will dovetail with what you're doing and will make it bigger, meaning his company. Because artists can release music themselves, so I need to look at you and think what we do plus what you do could be bigger. We'll be adding value to your business. That should piss you off. And if it doesn't, then I don't know why you're listening to this podcast, but that should aggravate you.
You're listening because we're handsome.
Yeah. I get really frustrated because, sure, I'm all for, like, you and I have each our own connections. We have not only a friendship relationship, but if I had resources that could benefit to help you, I would immediately help you with those resources, because I know you as an individual would do the vice versa for me, where it's like, hey, I got somebody that needs to book an artist like you, come over and do that. And I know in the end game, you would do the same for me. The concept of the business, though, is that they act like they have all these resources, and you're basically paying into this to get to their resources. And that frustrates me, because it's like, you're nothing without an artist. Like, this is a mutual thing. And A&R people like him are taking so much money from artists. And it was like that, I forgot the female artist that I sent you the other video for, where she basically, she was huge in England, Great Britain. And she was one of the top artists for like quite a while in 2019, 2020. She can't even afford to pay rent, and she still sells hundreds and thousands of products and units. She also gets millions of streams on Spotify, and she can't even afford rent. But she has a record deal, and they signed her at, what, like 16?
Yes, some absurdly young age. And
they screwed her over.
In her contract, it basically hampered her with a commitment where she would owe, like, what was it, like 80% or...
Yeah.
It was a huge portion of her future profits.
And multi-album deal.
Yeah. So she basically was making absolutely no money because of how shitty this deal was for her to enter into. So now she's like 21 or 20 or something like that.
Yeah, she's like, and she's pigeonholed.
She had made that comment that she said, Google apparently says that she's worth, $1.9 million, and she says, actually, I'm struggling to make rent payments on her apartment. It's insane. It's absolutely insane that, like, to pull from what you were just saying, the capitalist system of, let's just say, sales. Spotify is in sales. And they're trying to use human behavior to come to their site so that they can make a sale through advertisement. And for some strange reason, the sale is the only valuation in the transaction. And places like Spotify seem to look at the product that is being used to direct traffic to make a sale you're saying it's seemingly meaningless in some bizarre, however they think that's what they believe, in that the product is so throwawayable or so valueless, yet it is the reason it exists. I think it would be an interesting experience if there is someone out there in the world that starts another platform, and that the 80% that has been demonetized
just jumps to it,
leaves Spotify and goes to this new platform. Because it shouldn't matter to Spotify if the 80% does leave. It really shouldn't. According to their metrics, only the top tier artists actually matter, because those are the ones that people are listening to enough to generate some kind of sale. So,
yes. And I don't mean to get on a soapbox with this stuff. And again, I'm a peon to this situation, but being a peon frustrates me to see other artists that are small like this and struggling and younger than us. Like, you and I are in our 43, and it's like, we've been struggling with this for how long? And to see new artists coming in, it's like, it's not about making millions. It's about making money off your own personal art. And that shouldn't be just given away for free. Like, that's not fair. No matter what anybody says, if it's shitty music or whatever it is, that's artist up to taste. It's not about that. If you're allowing us to put it on the platform, then if somebody's streaming it, then you should allow that. And the other problem with the whole situation is the algorithm stuff. Like, nobody really knows how the algorithm really works. And if they're double dipping, and, because Sony and Warner, and they'll have interest in Spotify because they partially own some of this stuff. So who's to say that they're not spinning their own artists to keep continuously getting? And again, I'm not trying to get into like conspiracy theory, but it's frustrating and it's aggravating. And I don't want to come off like the curmudgeon old man that's like, but it's really
too late.
It's really aggravating for younger artists. And I feel for them, because you and I kind of have an understanding of how it works, from how long we've been in it. And we've seen the decades of how it's changed from CDs or cassettes, even to CDs, to Napster, to streaming. So we've kind of seen a lot of it where it's like, this is bullshit. Like, it should be progressively getting better, not worse.
Yeah. The powers that be are running away with it, and we're all letting them run away with it.
Right.
Yes, you're at fault.
You listening. No,
keep listening, please.
Keep
please.
listening. So I have written up. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm listening. That's my listening intently look.
Okay. So part of this is, so all that ranting going aside for the first 15, 20 minutes, was to go into the part of, is this the end of the ownership era? And I'm going to get into it right now. In music ownership, a thing of the past? Is music ownership a thing of the past? In a world dominated by streaming services and algorithmic playlists, some artists are pushing back, seeking to reintroduce the concept of true ownership by bypassing traditional digital distribution and offering exclusive, tangible formats like vinyl, cassettes, direct downloads, CDs. These creators are building deeper, more personal connections with the fans. This shift challenges the streaming-first industry model and raises the question: could owning music become a rebellious act of loyalty in modern music culture? So let's dive into the movement, redefining what it means to truly own music. And I don't mean just artists owning music. I mean fans owning the music as well. Because guess what? You get rid of Spotify, you don't have those anymore. So you're paying this membership fee. You don't get to keep all that music. So Artists who want to release music without relying on streaming services and digital distribution can provide fans with a sense of ownership while building a loyal following. And this is kind of the approach that I'm assessing with my own music career and the current times of how I view like the potential of what there is, the pathway in a way. And this isn't like this is how it has to be. But I think this is like a crucial stepping stone to getting to that point. So the first one is automatically bringing back physical formats.
Yes. Yes, please.
CDs, cassette tapes, vinyl records. You and I talked about this. Customized USB drives. I used to love, I would get occasionally music from people with USB drives and I'd pop it into my car. Yeah, I had a couple of them. And they're cheap. And again, it allows people to still own them, but they can still plug it into their dashboard, whatever you call it, the radio thing.
Doohickey.
Or your computer, and you still own that.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother aspect of this digital media that is a possibility.
Yeah, I think it's important to specifically take a look at what ownership means, what it was and what it is now. And like you're talking the physical CD. Okay, when you I'm trying to remember. Do you remember the gentleman's name? He did a short video in regards to his thoughts on ownership.
Oh, the one that we talked on through Instagram.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah, we'll put it in the.
It was a great video.
Yeah, the comments and the link for it and so on and so forth. But anyways, back in the day when you purchased something, you gave the store money and they give you an actual physical, tangible copy that you had in your hands and you could touch it and
it was yours.
Play with it and read it. And it's a physical thing that is part of a business transaction, so to speak. What that gave you as an individual is it gave you limited rights to play it wherever and whenever you wanted. Of course, you couldn't make money off of it. You couldn't use it and play it for the bar and collect fees to have people listen to it and so on and so forth. Like there's copyright and legalities involved with how you use the physical copy that you have. But the fact of the matter is you legally had the right to take that physical copy out of your credenza and put it into the CD player and listen to it. Or you had the right to take that vinyl record wherever you listen to it. Even with, I'm still an iPod guy. I still have my old iPod, and I swear by that thing because I have lots of songs on it, and I have full control over which ones of those songs I get to listen to when and where. And a lot of my catalog is not songs or music that I purchased through iTunes. It is from a physical CD. And thank goodness I had the physical CDs of all of this music, because there was an instance where my dumbass decided to click the wrong button and I reset the whole iPod, which erased everything that was on it. Well, there's this question of, okay, well, I paid all that money for a physical, tangible copy of this music. And because music is it's a digital commodity, there's this sort of tricky, teetering act, where if you don't have a physical copy of this digital audio and you erase your iPod, how do you regain a digital copy of the music you paid for already if you don't have a physical copy? Well, you would have to either buy a new digital copy from a service, or you're just SOL.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about ownership in terms of Like, I'm sure all of you out there understand. You go to a donut shop and you want to buy a donut. You say, "Excuse me, I would like to have this chocolate donut on your shelf." And they say, "Okay, it'll be, 99 cents, or if it's a boutique place, it'll be $11.99. Okay, you give them your money and they give you a donut. Wow, okay, I have the physical object. It is, when it comes to, maybe that's not a great example because it's food and it disappears after a while. What about a shirt? You go to the store, you pay some money for a shirt. You got the shirt. You wear the shirt whenever you want. You know what I mean? You have a physical, tangible object. Now, I don't know if this is segueing into what you're going to say next, but the industry has changed all of us and our perception of what ownership is. And I'm assuming that's where you're headed in regards to the next statement, because I think that's the fact that people don't actually own anything anymore, like physical things in the grand scheme of like consumable media. It's concerning.
It is. And I'm going to keep, it's basically how ownership isn't just the artist owns their music. They own the music, but it's the fans owning that specific piece of something. Yeah. I was talking to Leah, my partner, and we were joking around. I was looking up on eBay because I'm like, I wonder what CDs are even worth right now. And there's CDs now that are selling that, like, I don't know if I own them, but like CDs going for like $1,000 of like previous artists from like the 90s and stuff that are like original album cuts. And I'm sitting here like, this is so funny that these are like considered nostalgic when like I have a whole case sitting up in our record player of just my old CDs from the 90s, 2000s eras of like tons of CDs. Yeah. So just that ownership, like, it also makes people have to listen to a full album. And I think so many people miss that. You know what I mean? Like, I still love doing that.
Yeah, the artistic experience. Part of what you did was you popped in the album and you listened to it.
Right.
I recently saw Moby. He had said in a podcast of his own how nowadays there's so many things that are stealing your attention or vying for your attention that no one pays attention long enough to music. Like when you and I used to listen to music, it was you brought the CD home, you put it into the CD player, and you ripped out the liner notes, and you sat there reading it, and the same thing happened with vinyl. When vinyl was the only option, that's what you did. You know, it was equivalent to the focus you had when you sat down to a movie, or your favorite television show, or even dinner. Like
attention span.
Yeah, and exactly. Moby had spelled it out. He says, it's as though you know, kids these days, or people of all ages these days, they're streaming on Twitch and they're answering text messages, and they're trying to download something over here, and they're playing a game at the same time online, and in the background is the music that they're listening to. So
it's all multitasking now.
Yeah.
Well, and so I'm going to keep going with my blueprint because that's exactly. So one of the other things besides tangible CDs like that is exclusive digital ownership. And we talked about this in a previous podcast episode with NFTs, the non-fungible tokens, where people purchase them and they do own them, and they own them, and they could put them on their hard disk drive or whatever they want. And that allows them to then view and listen to that music, but they own that piece of music. And if they try to resell that thing, they can, but per smart contract, you would still make a cut of that because you're the rightful owner as the artist, but they would also make a little bit of money because they were a fan that was listening to it. And that's kind of where, like, again, digital ownership can still be done. That's exactly a way that digital ownership can happen. But
Yeah.
Spotify won't do that. They don't
Oh,
want
no.
you to do that. The other concept is direct digital downloads, like Bandcamp.
Yes.
Bandcamp's a great site. And I get it, they still take a portion of a cut, but there's a reason they're providing a service for it. They're also not spewing out algorithms to, like, you direct people to your Bandcamp page.
Yeah, it is essentially your own store.
Right.
And I strongly promote everyone all the time.
Yeah.
If you want to help support your favorite musicians and your favorite artists, go to their Bandcamp and buy your digital downloads directly from them.
Yep.
Bandcamp.com. Ask them. They will be so grateful that you bought directly through them, because it's a direct store. Yeah, the store takes a commission,
but it's not a lot.
Right.
It's decent. Like when you sell some songs on there, it's like, holy cow, this is like a pretty decent amount of money you get from the sale.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is, using Bandcamp, you can specify how much you want for, say, your CD, but people can pay as much as they want. Like if they let's say you have 10 songs, you ask for $10 because you wanted $1 a song. People can pay you $15 if they want. They can pay you more than what is asked for, and you can also set it as name your price so that your listeners can come in and pay whatever they want for your album or your music.
The next thing I have for this is merge art and merchandise, meaning like bundling merchandise. So, hey, we're going to sell a poster with a CD, but we're going to give you a discount on it because you're bundling it together. Or lyric books and sheet music is another whole aspect of like how people can make it. Am I saying you need to do this? No, but it's still ownership, and it still allows you to be able to provide something to your fan base where it's like, hey, this is the sheet music for my songs. If if anybody ever wants them, again, that's probably for bigger artists or whatever. But it's still something tangible, and it's still something people can touch and see of yours that is viable. But I definitely think merchandise is one of those things where, of course, Ticketmaster is now trying to get in everybody's merchandise when they sell at live shows, because they realize that's what artists are making. So they're charging artists to sell merchandise through their venues, which is a complete and utter crock of shit.
Yeah.
But that's why, again, for smaller local independent artists, have some posters, have some of that stuff, and bundle it together with CDs and vinyl. You and I just said that. Like, vinyl and CDs to me are like going to make a huge... Vinyl's already making a comeback, but I personally think a lot of artists are already sick and tired of it, and they're like, we're just going to start selling CDs again.
I'm with them. I have CDs that physical copies that if people want a physical copy, wherever I perform. Vinyl has been fantastic for. I remember people getting excited and hot and bothered about vinyl. Almost over 10 years ago. So vinyl is still great. Vinyl is still doing well.
Yeah.
It is definitely a very different quality of sound and music. It's definitely worth picking up some of your favorite artists on vinyl because of the sound quality. But CDs, man, I cannot tell you how many. Like, if I have a favorite artist or someone that I want their music, just go and buy a CD from them.
Yeah.
It completely and totally eliminates the middleman that is the download service or the streaming service. Like, you own it now.
Yeah.
Like, it can't be taken away from you unless you throw out your CD player.
Right. or you scratch it up too bad because you wear it down from playing it too much. I had too many of those
Oh,
CDs where I had to like double buy a CD. I'm like, man, this is such a good CD, but I need to rebuy it.
I have done that too.
Um, the other thing that, and this is one of those things for me personally, where it's like, this is again just my idea of things. So if you engage with live and local communities, so we all know about like DIY shows. You've been doing a shit ton of DIY shows, which has been awesome to watch. Like seeing you do these open mics, but also like house shows and stuff that you're getting and stuff, which is really cool to be able to do that stuff. Um, and that's important because that's a whole nother building a community around you. You and I have talked about this. We would rather have 1,000 hardcore fans that really love us than 100,000 laissez-faire fans that are like, they're good, but I'm not listening to them every day. Because those 1,000 fans will show up for you every day, like anytime. Yeah. They love your music and they're gonna do it. The other thing, and I think these are making a huge wave right now for me personally, is pop-up shops. Like I've seen the Deftones do it. I've seen Jason Isbell do it. Ray LaMontagne do one when I was in Nashville. And basically the artist isn't there, but they set up a pop-up shop with their merchandise. And it's basically like, hey, there's a place in Nashville called Eastside Bowl. If anybody from Nashville is listening, it's a great place to go. It's awesome. They occasionally have pop-up shops come up there, and people just set up like a little booth in the front of the bowling alley, and they'll sell merchandise, CDs, records of the artist, and it's for a certain amount of time, and you could buy physical merchandise from the artist's booth people.
Okay.
It's pretty cool actually to be able to do that, to oh cool, and it's still supporting the artist, and that artist is still making money off that. It's not the venue necessarily, like Ticketmaster getting half the funds for that. There were posters there was so much stuff, and I get it. Like again, this is hustle culture or whatever. I'm not talking about that, but this is all stuff that goes hand in hand with, if we're going to build a fan base, this is part of that process of like avoiding streaming services and stuff. The other thing that I thought about was not craft fairs, but there's a lot of like festival type things where you can get like a tent or something. And I think too many artists don't take advantage of that, of having a tent set up. Sure, it might cost you like $250 to set up a tent. But imagine the amount of people that come through there and look at stuff. And there could be thousands of people. Have a vinyl record player playing your music through the vinyl. Have a CD player set up where it's playing your music. Be there. Talk to your community. And I'm not saying spend 6 hours or whatever, but like give yourself like a branding name or something. Like give yourself that to like be able to do that. Sell posters. If you have you're extremely creative artist too, with like posters and stuff. It's like have that stuff. That's how you're going to build a following without doing digital streaming anymore. And this is again just my blueprint of like, if I'm not doing this, how would I approach this as an artist, independent artist, to where it's like I'm building a fan base and I'm building a community, and each connection you make, which you're doing right now, man, you're doing tons of connecting with different people with your shows and stuff like that. That's where you start to put feelers out, where Spotify and them all up here, yeah, sure, they have their connections. You're building a bigger connection down here amongst the community. Eventually that's going to keep rising, and people are going to be like, where did this guy come from? And that's kind of this blueprint. I have in here too, like leverage Patreon and subscription models. You and I kind of talked about this, like you talked about like Twitch and stuff. Like, yeah, you could do that. I don't think there's a problem with it. I personally don't want to do subscription stuff, just because for me, it's like, that's consistently staying on top of like providing, I guess, like a subscription. If you're like, hey, you pay $1 a month, you get the song of the month. I release a song every month, and it's an exclusive song only to Patreon members. Sure, that's not a bad thing. If somebody wants to pay $12 for a year and they get a full album out of you. But I don't like doing the whole like every day I'm going to go on and talk to, you know what I mean? It's like, there's ways of approaching it where it's still kosher in music, and it's not it's not being a content creator, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I'm trying to avoid being like not being a content creator, but being an artist or musician, but still providing value and building a fan base that way. I don't want to keep talking. I have a few other things that I could touch on real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of them is collaborate with independent channels like you're doing. You've just recently, when you did that house show, like you talked about some stuff that they were planning on doing. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Like,
yeah,
they're talking about independent radio, which again is crucial to independent artists. I do think that's a whole nother aspect of like building a fan base without digital content is college radio, independent radio, even some independent podcasts like this. Like if you get a big enough following, you start talking to, it's again like building this whole thing, and you're still avoiding doing digital streaming and content creation type stuff.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I have that would be what I talked about with my blueprint of things is like building fan engagement where, you know, limited runs with stuff where it's like, again, with the Patreon thing where you're kind of like, hey, I'm doing a limited run of these specific posters to go along with this concept album or this concept EP or whatever it is. I don't know. That's just another idea of like giving people more incentive of wanting to be a part of what you're bringing them as an independent artist, where they're not tuning into Spotify, they're tuning into you. But that's kind of where I think of with my blueprint, like creating tangible, unique offerings, connecting with fans who value the physical ownership as well as you having ownership of your music, and the experience of like taking away streaming, and then fans invest in you. Like they want that direct ownership. They want that contact, the connection with you, where it's not just through a screen, but like that's your vinyl, that's your piece of art that you provided for them. And I don't know I mean, maybe the people are going to listen to this and be like, what an idiot, and totally fine.
No.
But that's my take on this whole, is the era of ownership, is this the end of the ownership era? I don't think it is, but I think we're on the cusp of it kind of doing the whole like 180 of like, oh no, fuck this. Maybe I'm wrong, but
to piggyback off of what you're saying, I think there are enough people who are aware in this country, at least, that see what's going on. They see the realities of what a non-tangible digital age is doing to us in regards to our human behavior and the way we connect to other people, and what it's doing to our pocketbook, and to what it's doing to our sense of, are we actually in control in this kind of commodified environment?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
The whole idea that brought us to today's podcast was this notion of nobody seems to own physical copies of anything anymore. And it starts this chain reaction of questions as to what does that mean? Why are we doing this? Why is their first inclination not to go purchase someone's CD when they hear them on the radio? Well, the industry has phased that out and pushed so much of consumption to this digital realm. The dangerous part about it, as I'm sure many people see, is that, like at the topic of today's conversation says, you have no actual ownership. You don't own anything. There's no physical copy. You don't even own the right to play the song when you want to play it. Because the digital platform, like you said earlier, they can just take it away and you can no longer listen to that song on the platform. Well, guess what? You still pay your monthly fee, but you don't get to listen to that song anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Are people okay with that? Are people aware that the physical ownership gives you all the power and control over when and where you consume this media. Whereas it may seem desirable to a minimalist type thinker where I don't want to have a whole huge collection of CDs that I have to find a spot in my house to put it in, and then I have to maintain them. And if I can just, all of the physical actions required to having a physical copy of something, some people don't like, so they just give in to the consolidated maintenance of a collection to a digital service provider. Well, the problem that comes in is, that's great. You may have access to 10 million songs and you can listen to them wherever you want. The problem is once the service decides that you don't get access anymore, then not only do you not, all of that money you've spent, that investment, is completely and totally gone. There's no show for what you spent at all. And that's one of the problems I feel with these types of services. And there are other people who have gone further into this discussion, saying that, well, holding physical real copies of things is actual, like, documented proof of what the recording was, or what the DVD had on it. And if there is no physical proof of anything anywhere because nobody owns a physical copy of anything, there's a potential that we're not understanding history or what it was or what things were, because we're just getting it through the digital service provider. And we may not even have any proof to get from the provider because they just decide not to let you stream it anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a bigger discussion here, I believe, in regards to, and some people are going to chuckle maybe, but your rights and your liberties when it comes to your consumption in American society. It used to be you bought something and you had it. Well, now you're paying for something every month and you don't have anything to show for it. Is that okay? Are people okay with forking over this monthly fee for an intangible ghost-like experience where if you have there's a couple instances that I think feed this concern, or this, at least concern that I have, and why I prefer physical copies of things, is I'm one of those people. I love and enjoy watching Friends, and I have heard that depending on what copies of the DVDs you own, whether it's an earlier version of a DVD or a Blu-ray or a re-release, there are differences in those copies because some of these copies are edited, so you don't actually get the whole episode because parts of it have been taken out because they own the content and they edit it and reissue it. Like if you watch Friends on Netflix, there are certain portions of episodes that are completely gone.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Where you'll be watching the episode and like, wait a minute, they were supposed to blah, 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 blah. That's completely, totally took that out. And it seemingly, this phenomenon has happened with other shows or other media that is on TV. My good buddy, he had said that the same thing he's experienced with the Golden Girls. There's huge portions of episodes that are just completely removed that are essential to the storyline of the episode, but they took it out for some reason. So if someone has a physical copy of these kinds of media, it essentially grounds it's a form of grounding reality in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm getting too heady about it, but the trouble comes in is that if we have no physical proof of anything as it was, who's to say what the reality is? And having a physical copy of your favorite band's music is so much more beneficial in tons of different ways. It helps support the artists themselves. It puts the money directly in their pocket. It gives you direct, immediate access to the content because you have a physical copy of it. But it also is a true document of what actually happened in the time and space of that recording. And so many of these companies have just trained everyone that this is super convenient and this is just the way it is now.
Yeah.
And just pay service. It's no big deal. Just pay a little bit of service and you can access all this content. I think the debate should be hot and fueled and should go on into the night with everyone that listens to this podcast. I think people need to really delve into it because we're all a part of this sort of alienation of realness. And to your point, not releasing music on social media, or I'm sorry, not social, on like things like Spotify, you know, like limiting your use of the digital environment where there is no physical transaction actually happening. I think it's a very important question to pose yourself as as a musician and an artist, and your ideas of using the tangible connective ways to share your art music has got to become the first and foremost number one thing that people start doing.
100% agree. One thing I was saying, and then we could wrap it up.
Yeah,
I've been thinking about it a lot too. I talked to this about with my sister about the book banning stuff that's been happening, and yeah. I've personally been thinking, like, do we really think it's going to end at books? I personally think, and I'm not trying to get political, but I do think they're going to start going towards media, like movies and music. Oh, sure. And her and I both were saying, like, I actually really enjoy having a tangible book in my hand and reading it. And I've been starting to slowly get back into reading tangible books that we have in our book. Like, I'm like, oh, I forgot that we had this.
Right.
And it goes back to ownership. When these things are gone, because if potentially things start going, like you said, you have a tangible copy of some sort of historic thing happening. It's not just music, it's anything tangible. That copy, that's that physical piece of material that you have.
Yes. As you cannot be oppressed, or if you have a physical copy that cannot be taken out of your hands by any other means, they have no control over you. If someone is trying to oppress you and control what you know, if you've got a physical copy of the book, sorry, man, you can't be prevented if let's say you're using an Amazon Kindle or something like that.
Right.
Like, so I'm with you. Physical copies, and okay. Everybody has limitations. You don't need to maintain and keep 50,000 DVDs and CDs. But if all of us kept some, then we all have proof.
Yeah.
We all have the truth is a physical thing.
Hey,
You know.
you're talking about being a community, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it goes hand in hand with ownership of this era. And maybe if we
See?
started a music community where people cared about each other. Hey.
I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah,
Because
I know.
from what I think you're saying is if you participated in a community, you can share these physical, tangible objects with each other, and no one can stop you.
Stop making sense.
Oh,
How
dang
dare
it.
you? Okay, we're going to wrap it up.
okay.
This was a great conversation, in my opinion. I hope any listeners out there took something from it. Please remember, do all the follows, likes, subscribes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comment.
Huh?
Tell us what you think.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us how pretty we are. No. But honestly, we do get quite a few listeners, which is cool. And we get a random subscribers sometimes. So just share it if you enjoy it. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Anybody out there that, especially if you've gotten this far in the episodes,
Yeah.
thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah. Two old curmudgeon-y people complaining. Yeah.
Whippersnapper.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. You guys all have a good one.
Peace.